Now we learn the psychology of stupidity. They hoped you'd never discover. By Story Broadcasting. Here's the link if you want to subscribe if you like this video. And let's learn. The most dangerous thing in the world isn't evil. It's stupidity that thinks it's doing good. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Yeah.
What if the greatest danger to your freedom isn't evil, not cruelty, not malice, but something far more common and far more contagious? What if the people destroying the world aren't even aware they're doing it?
They're stupid.
A parent, a teacher, a doctor, a friend, all slowly, quietly becoming something they never meant to be. Not because they're bad, but because they've stopped thinking. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a pastor who tried to kill Hitler, called this the most terrifying force of all.
Huh?
Not violence, not hatred, but stupidity.
It's the NPCs of the world. No.
And once you understand what he meant, you'll start seeing it everywhere.
Oh gosh.
In your conversations, even in yourself. Most people think,
am I stupid? No. I mean, maybe sometimes. You know what? Maybe sometimes it's fine.
stupidity is just a lack of intelligence.
Sometimes
As
I
if
am
it's something
stupid.
that happens to someone else. But what if it's more like a virus? One that hijacks the mind without leaving a trace. Bonhoeffer didn't define stupidity as ignorance. He saw it as something far more sinister, the surrender of the inner voice, a slow erosion of judgment, a moral silence that spreads through entire societies, quietly, invisibly. It's not that stupid people destroy the world. It's that ordinary people stop asking questions. They stop thinking for themselves. And then they become useful.
They become
useful
sheep.
To ideologies, useful to systems, useful to anyone who benefits from people not thinking too much. And the terrifying part? They believe they're doing the right thing. They follow orders. They repeat the slogans. They suppress doubt. And in doing so, they become what Bonhoeffer feared most: intelligent people who've lost the will to think. He saw this not in fringe radicals, but in educated professionals, lawyers, priests, teachers, the very people who should have known better. He realized the greatest threat wasn't malice. It was obedience without reflection.
Like, oh, well, he must know what he's doing, so yes, we'll just go along with it. Yes.
In Nazi Germany,
follow the leader.
Bonhoeffer watched the
Never ask
unthinkable
questions.
happen in slow motion. Educated citizens, people who once quoted Goethe, prayed in cathedrals,
Oh my God, these pictures are
taught
freaking
moral
creepy.
philosophy, began to cheer for censorship, exclusion, and violence. They didn't wake up evil. They became absorbed, carried by momentum, swallowed by consensus. And that's the key. Bonhoeffer's most disturbing insight wasn't about the stupid. It was about the obedient. Because obedience gives comfort. It relieves you of the burden of doubt. It replaces the discomfort of critical thought.
Because then if stuff goes wrong, you can just be like, oh, well, it wasn't my fault. I was just doing what you told me. Yep.
the warmth
It's all
of
your fault
belonging.
then.
And the more you're surrounded by a repeating message on your radio, in your church, on the street, the more dangerous it becomes to ask, wait, does this even make sense? Bonhoeffer called this functional stupidity.
Functional stupidity. Oh my goodness. Obedience is victory and victory is life.
It's when people stop thinking critically, not because they can't, but because they won't. Because thinking would cost them something. And
Ooh.
here's the part that cuts the deepest. When people feel unsafe, when fear, chaos, or confusion rise, they crave certainty. Not truth, not facts, certainty. And certainty,
Yeah,
Bonhoeffer realized, is the fastest shortcut to
fair.
stupidity.
If someone starts making promises to people who are scared and stuff, they're going to be like, "Oh, well, this person's promising all these great things. So, yes, let's go with this person. Yes, yes."
Not because people are evil, but
They won't even
because
ask
they are
questions. They'll just do
scared.
it.
And scared minds cling to simple answers, loud voices, and righteous slogans. So the question becomes, in a world designed to overwhelm you, how do you keep thinking when thinking gets dangerous? Bonhoeffer said something few had the courage to admit: you cannot reason with stupidity. Not because it's unintelligent, but because it's unreachable. You speak, but they don't hear you. Not really. They hear a threat, an attack, a disruption to the story they've decided must be true. Arguments fall on
Oh.
deaf ears, he
Yeah,
wrote.
like they won't take any other side of the story. Their side of the story is right and everyone else is wrong, and that's it. They won't consider anything
From
else.
prison. Facts that contradict beliefs are either ignored or transformed into confirmation. Why? Because the person in front of you isn't arguing from reason, they're arguing from identity. And identity doesn't respond to logic, it responds to loyalty. This is what makes functional stupidity so terrifying. It masquerades as morality. People don't just believe falsehoods, they believe they're being good by defending them.
Yeah, because they're like, "Oh, well, I'm being loyal, so obviously I'm doing good." You'd be better trying to reason with a grizzly bear not to eat you. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
They
Oh my
call
god, the
it
coat of
faith,
arms.
or patriotism, or justice. But peel back the words and you'll find something else: fear. Fear of isolation, fear of being wrong, fear of being cast out.
Yep.
And so reason becomes dangerous, not just because it challenges ideas, but because it threatens belonging. This is why stupid ideas survive, because smart people stop challenging them. Not because they're weak, but because they're tired. Because at some point, the cost of thinking becomes higher than the cost of silence. And here's what Bonhoeffer feared most. When enough people surrender that cost, the lie wins by default. Not because it was stronger, but because it was easier. We like to think
Taking that easy way
intelligence
out.
protects us, that education, credentials, or rationality are shields against manipulation. But Bonhoeffer saw through that illusion. He didn't just witness uneducated mobs swept into madness. He watched doctors,
The hell?
theologians, judges, men with titles and books behind them repeat Nazi propaganda as if it were gospel. Not because they were evil, but because They stopped thinking for themselves. Stupidity, Bonhoeffer said, isn't a lack of intellect. It's a surrender of conscience, a decision, sometimes conscious, often unconscious, to trade clarity for comfort. He described conversations where he felt he wasn't speaking to a person anymore, but to a broadcast, a string of slogans and stock phrases that sounded human but weren't. Today, we call this algorithmic thinking, or groupthink, or echo chambers.
Oh God, not the algorithm.
It's when your inner voice becomes someone else's, repeated so many times you forget it wasn't yours to begin with. And here's where it gets darker. The more intelligent you are, the better you become at rationalizing the lie. You don't see through it, you reinforce it. You use your education, your eloquence, your intellect to defend the very system manipulating you, because being right feels safer than being awake. And Bonhoeffer's warning grows louder. It is not evil men we should fear most, but good men who've stopped thinking. Bonhoeffer realized something few dared to admit. Stupidity flourishes in certain conditions, not in isolation, not randomly, but under power. The power of the one needs the stupidity of the other, he wrote. See, stupidity isn't a natural state, it's manufactured. Like smoke in a room with no windows, it builds slowly until you stop noticing it at all. And the smoke? It comes
This is definitely another video where I thought it would like be funny or something, but then it's like deep, and I'm like,
from
and
every
you're like,
direction.
whoa,
News
what?
reduced to headlines, conversations hijacked by ideology, social media turning outrage into entertainment, a million flashing signals telling you don't think, react. What Bonhoeffer feared wasn't misinformation, it was disorientation. He saw
Yeah, same slasher. I'm like super paying attention to what's being said. But like I feel like it's really true though. Like people, so many people will, you see it on Twitter a lot. When there's like drama, you have people who are just, there's two sides, there's no in between, and everyone's fighting, and it's just a bunch of stupidity all in the mix. Yep. And like for me that's why like I don't like to listen to only one side of the story when someone's like coming to me being like, "Oh my god, this person's such an asshole," or "they did blah 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 blah." Like I like to get both sides of the story, because if you want me to give my opinion, well then I want to give a proper opinion. Like I don't want to just give some one-sided opinion that you're telling me, "Oh, this person's a biatch," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay, well if you're telling me that, then they must be actually a biatch." Like, no, I want to actually talk to both of you, and then I'll let you know. Maybe you're the biatch for telling me that they're a biatch. You know what I mean?
a culture trained not to reflect, but to repeat, not to doubt, but to align. And worst of all, the more someone identifies with the group, the movement, the party, the faith, the more blind they become to its flaws. Because when thinking risks
What the
exile,
frig is these images?
silence
Hello, hear me out.
becomes survival. And that's what stupidity really
Oh my god, I cannot actually believe the AI mod blocked that on Kick. That's so funny. That's so funny. We're calling random people on social media a biatch sometimes. Yes.
is. not a failure of the mind,
There
but
is
of
too much
courage.
sass. Yes,
Bonhoeffer
too much
wasn't
sass.
naive. He knew thinking clearly could cost you
I'm trying to
everything.
decipher the images.
He was imprisoned,
Yeah, the images are freaking insane. What the hell? They're
tortured,
creepy.
ultimately killed. But still he wrote, still he warned, because he understood the point of thinking is not to be safe, it's to be free.
Well, yeah, you gotta
Here's
think
the
for your
most
damn
haunting
self.
part of Bonhoeffer's theory. The stupid person doesn't know they've surrendered. He wrote, one feels in conversation with them that one is not dealing with the person himself, but with slogans, catchwords, and the like. It's as if the human being vanishes, and all that's left is a mouthpiece,
It's a bunch
echoing
of
someone
words.
else's thoughts,
Yup.
someone else's fears. They smile, they argue, they debate, but none of it is theirs. They've outsourced their soul, and they don't
Where they got
even
the idea
realize
for the
it.
Matrix?
This is what makes the phenomenon
Maybe.
so dangerous. You can reason with evil. You can resist it, because evil knows what it is. But stupidity? It thinks it's right. It speaks with confidence. It moves with certainty.
Fair.
It even believes it's moral. That's what Bonhoeffer saw in Nazi Germany. Professors, pastors, judges, all repeating the same lines, all claiming virtue, while horror unfolded just outside their windows. And here's the part that
It will be fine. Meanwhile, everything's blowing up and on fire in the background. Yes.
should make you pause. These weren't monsters. They were ordinary people. Your neighbors, your teachers, maybe even yourself. Because the truth is, stupidity is seductive. It simplifies the world. It erases doubt.
They're pig
It
sheep.
tells you you're on the right side. No need to question. No need to look deeper. Just follow. That's how the mind collapses without ever noticing. Bonhoeffer noticed something unnerving. The rise of stupidity always seemed to follow one thing: the rise of power. Upon closer observation, he wrote, it becomes apparent that every strong upsurge of power, whether political or religious, infects a large part of humankind with stupidity. But why? Because power doesn't need thinking, it needs obedience. The more
Yes, because the person in power, everyone believes that the person in power is the smartest person. So any decision they make, they will not question it. They will just do. They will be obedient and they will do it because they're like, oh, well, they know best. That's why they're the leader.
a regime
When
or
it's
a
not always
system
true.
centralizes authority, the more it rewards those who conform and punishes those who question. And so people begin to make a silent trade. They exchange the discomfort of doubt for the comfort of belonging. They stop thinking, not because they're incapable, but because thought becomes dangerous. Better to repeat.
Well, yeah, because they don't want you to realize they're stupid. They don't want you to realize that they're stupid.
Than to rebel. Bonhoeffer saw this everywhere in Nazi Germany. Men and women who were once nuanced, educated, capable of reflection, became slogans with skin. Their faces still human, their voices still familiar, but their minds were gone. He warned, once a person becomes stupid in this way, he is no longer independent. He's not thinking anymore. He's being thought through. Not possessed by demons, but by ideologies, by movements, by power itself. And you can't
You would also be afraid of being subjected to the horrors outside the window if you disagree. Yeah, true. True. Very true.
that. You can't reason with it, because what you're facing is no longer a person, but a mask. a mask worn by the system. This is the true terror of Bonhoeffer's theory, not that evil acts are committed by evil people, but that entire societies can begin to think with one mind and forget they ever had their own. What Bonhoeffer couldn't have predicted, what he couldn't have even imagined, was the machinery we live inside today. Because now, stupidity isn't just a sociological glitch, it's engineered. Our systems, our economies, our technologies, our politics, all run smoother when you don't ask too many questions. Take social media. It doesn't
No.
care if what...
No, don't do it. Don't go on the social media. I think he's forgetting a major point about Germany at that time is that you either toe the party line or you get sent off to camp. Yeah, true. It was, I feel in those times, yeah, it would have been, like, less about being stupid, more about being you don't want to die. For sure.
what you're sharing is true, only that it's engaging. Emotion over evidence, speed over substance. And the algorithm? It rewards outrage, tribalism.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. Which reminds me, who wants to start some shit with me on Twitter? We need to start some drama. We need to stir up some shit. I need to post. Be like, man, I can't believe this friggin' guy Slasher in my chat. I can't believe him. Totally came in my chat and was a complete asshole. And like said all this shit.
Certainty. Nuance dies in the scroll. Bonhoeffer saw how slogans replaced thought. Today the slogan is the thought. We say, do your research, while consuming pre-chewed content from someone else's bias bubble.
I don't think it's pertaining to what I'm thinking of, but I hate when you're like asking questions somewhere and all people tell you is Google it. I'm not an asshole. No, you're not, Slasher. You're the sweetest person ever. Sweetest person ever. And so is Amy, and so is Julius, and so is everyone else. Yes.
We call it thinking for ourselves. But it's not thinking if the outcome was decided before the question was even asked. And it's not just the platforms. Our entire culture rewards certainty. Influencers who speak with absolute confidence. Politicians who never admit doubt. News networks that reduce complex issues into emotional binaries.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah, it's not my job to educate you. Okay, well then whose job is it? Oh man, it boils my blood when people say that. It's not my job to educate you. Well, shut up then, and I will continue to have my viewpoint.
Why? Because we are addicted to clarity. We fear what Bonhoeffer called the pain of real thinking. And so we outsource it to our group, to our algorithm, to our chosen identity. But the moment we do that, we stop being independent minds and become echoes. Bonhoeffer warned that stupidity is not a lack of intelligence, but a failure of responsibility. He was right. The terrifying part isn't that we're being lied to. It's that we've stopped demanding truth at all. Bonhoeffer didn't believe resistance was about heroism. He believed it was about pain. Because thinking, real thinking, isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. It isolates you from your tribe. It demands doubt where others offer faith. It asks you to admit, "I don't know," in a culture that punishes uncertainty. Bonhoeffer called it costly grace, a grace that asks not for comfort, but for courage. To think clearly is to suffer honestly, because once you see the cracks in your beliefs, in your systems, in yourself, you can't unsee them. And when you begin to resist stupidity, it doesn't feel like rebellion. It feels like loss. You lose belonging. You lose simplicity. You lose the warm certainty of being on the right side. But what you gain, if you survive the fire, is something deeper, a mind that is your own. Modern psychology backs Bonhoeffer's intuition. Cognitive dissonance, the anxiety of holding conflicting truths, is so painful, most people will do anything to avoid it, even surrender their mind. But Bonhoeffer chose differently. In a prison cell, surrounded by conformity and fear, he chose thought. He chose the discomfort of clarity over the comfort of obedience, and he paid with his life.
Damn.
He once wrote, "The ultimate test of a moral society is the kind of world it leaves to its children." But today, the question is more personal. What kind of mind will you leave to yourself? If functional stupidity is a system, then resistance must be a practice. Not once, not loud, but daily, quiet, repetitive, intentional. Bonhoeffer believed we don't defeat stupidity by outsmarting it. We dissolve it by refusing to surrender our mind, even
Like, just don't believe everything everyone tells you. You gotta question it. You gotta make sure what people are telling you is true.
when surrender feels easier.
Get both sides of the stories and all that stuff.
Psychologists today echo this. They call it intellectual humility. It doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking less about being right. It's the willingness to say, "I might be wrong," and to mean it. So what does resistance actually look like? It looks like choosing friction over flow. Once a week, read someone you disagree with, not to debate them, but to understand them. It looks like pausing before posting. Take 60 seconds and ask, would I believe this if it challenged me instead of confirmed me? It looks like curiosity, not as a hobby,
Think before you post? What?
but as
No
a discipline.
way.
Ask questions you don't know the answer to. Defend beliefs you don't fully trust. And most radically, say, "I don't know," when you really don't. In a world where everyone performs certainty, admitting ignorance is rebellion. But it's not just about the personal. Structural resistance matters too. We need social media algorithms that don't just reward engagement, but elevate nuance. We need schools that teach how to think, not just what to memorize. We need leaders who ask better questions, not louder answers. But here's the truth Bonhoeffer knew. Systems don't change unless people do first.
Very
And people
true.
don't change unless they feel something deeper than fear. They change when they realize the future of their own mind is in their hands. Because if stupidity is systemic, so is thought. And every act of thinking, carefully, humbly, independently, becomes a fracture in the machine.
The hard part is most issues are very complex and we don't have all the time in the world to study everything about that issue. I think a more important lesson is recognize when you don't know about a subject and don't try to argue at that point. Yeah, like, people are always so hesitant to admit that they don't know, but like, I don't think I've ever struggled with that because I'll go more along the lines of, oh, well, I don't know, but I can research it. Or I don't know, but I can learn. Like, there's nothing wrong with admitting that you don't know something. And then, together you look into the subject, you research it, you learn about it so that then you do know about it.
April
instead
9th,
of just trying to make some stupid shit up or something that's not even true and then everyone believes it. Yeah, exactly. I don't know, but what would you recommend to read? Just anything other than trying to make up some kind of lie. Yeah, hopefully they don't hit you. Oh, it's not my job to educate you.
1945, just weeks before the Nazi regime would fall, Dietrich Bonhoeffer stood at the gallows. His crime wasn't violence. It wasn't disobedience. It was refusal to go along with the unthinking tide. His final words were quiet, almost unremarkable. This is the end. For me, the beginning of life. He wasn't just saying goodbye. He was testifying to something bigger. That thinking, even when it costs everything, is still life. That surrendering your mind is a kind of death. Bonhoeffer wasn't a philosopher in a lecture hall. He was a human being who watched his neighbors forget how to question and paid the price for reminding them. He saw something terrifying, that the greatest threat to humanity isn't the evil man. It's the unthinking majority who let him in. And that threat didn't die with the Reich. It evolved. It digitized. Now we scroll instead of salute. We repost instead of question. We go numb instead of awake.
No.
The algorithm doesn't need to imprison us. It just needs us comfortable. But here's the haunting question Bonhoeffer leaves us with, the one that echoes louder today than it did in that prison cell. Who stands fast? When it's easier to conform, when it's profitable to remain ignorant, when it's safer to repeat than to reflect, who still thinks? The answer isn't found in your IQ. It's not in your degree. It's in your decision, made quietly, daily, to remain fully human, to see clearly, even when it hurts, to ask when others obey, to stand fast, not with violence, but with the one thing tyrants, algorithms, and crowds can't predict: independent thought. Bonhoeffer didn't just die resisting a regime. He died resisting a mindset, one that still survives, quietly, inside systems, screens, and even ourselves.
Welcome in, Teagle! You were cruising! Cruising for a bruising? It's okay. Welcome, welcome. We're learning about the psychology of stupidity. Yep.
Because the truth
Don't be a sheep.
Thinking hurts. It's hard to admit you don't know. It's painful to challenge what comforts you. And it's terrifying to question the people and ideas that gave your life structure. But Bonhoeffer believed that this pain, this discomfort, was the cost of remaining truly human. And maybe that's the real crisis today. Not that we're stupid, but that we've built a world where being intelligent, meaningfully, humbly, actively intelligent, feels like rebellion, where confidence is confused for
True.
competence, where being loud is mistaken for being right, and where certainty has become a drug, numbing us from nuance, depth, or doubt. We are, all of us, one step away from sleepwalking through history again, and we'll never see it coming. Because functional stupidity doesn't sound like propaganda. It sounds like, I don't have time to think about this. Everyone else believes it. That's just the way things are.
Everyone else believes it, so it must be true.
So what do we do?
No.
We start small, not by shouting louder, but by listening harder. Not by proving we're right, but by asking if we might be wrong. And not by trying to outsmart everyone, but by refusing to outsource our thinking to them. Every time you pause before reposting, you resist. Every time you admit uncertainty, you resist. Every time you ask a difficult question, instead of accepting the easy answer, you stand fast. Because in a world that rewards surrender, the simplest act of reflection is revolution. So here's the question Bonhoeffer leaves us with. What kind of person are you when thinking becomes dangerous? Because when everything around you pushes toward numbness, the act of staying conscious is the quietest, most powerful rebellion you'll ever make.
Damn. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. Well, damn. That was a deep video.